The Thrustmaster Solar One just hit the market. It's a compact stick made for desktop use. It comes with interchangeable grips, and some say it's able to take on the long-time standard in the price range, the VKB Gladiator. What I have here isn't a review sample, I just went to a store and bought it like everyone else. Hello good people, and nice to see you back on my channel. The first thing we see once we open the Solar One's box are some instructions, followed by the USB connection cable. The grip is also packaged separately together with the palm rest. Below it sits the base with the additional controls like a throttle slider and momentary switches. The controls feel as expected for the price, more on that later. On the back of the base is the USB connector, and on the bottom are some anti-slip pads accompanied by the left and right switch. Now let's check out the grip. It weighs in at 315 grams and feels okay. The plastic isn't super high level, but not bad either. The base features Thrustmaster's standard grip connector and, to my disappointment, a cup and ball gimbal. I'll explain in depth later. If you want to know all about the different gimbal types right now, check out the gimbal roundup video I link up there and in the description. Otherwise, let's continue. The grip attaches without a problem. The twist axis works nicely and has just the right amount of resistance. It's lockable and uses contactless sensors, just like the base itself. Once you plug it in, the RGB lighting comes on. And I have to say, the stick looks super nice. Tastes are different, but I really like it. Let's check out the controls we got. On the top of the grip are two 8-way hats, an analog mini stick, two buttons, and a pushable scroll wheel. On the front is a dual stage trigger, a 2-way rapid fire trigger, and on the lower part of the grip there's a pinky button you can flip from the left to the right. The whole grip is ambidextrous and can be reconfigured to a right or left-handed setup if you want. On the base are 4 momentary flip switches, 8 buttons, a rotary dial, a 4-way mode switch, and a throttle slider with 4 centimeters of range. From an ergonomic point of view, it shares all the pros and cons of ambidextrous designs. The grip can be used with either hand, but depending on which one you use, the left or the right hand gets a bit hard to reach. Same goes for the respective button. The center-mounted analog stick sits too high for smaller hands and isn't as comfortable to operate as lower-mounted sticks, no matter how big your hand is. The Gladiator's mini stick sits on the upper left side of the head, for example. This kind of placement lets your thumb rest and move at a more natural angle, although a lower left placement would be even better. The same problem applies to the base. Either the right or the left side of the controls is obstructed by the grip, so you can't comfortably operate them with your free hand, and sometimes you have to let go of the grip to reach them. The Gladiator's base has all of the controls on the front, so it doesn't share this drawback. But it also has fewer input options on the base though. It makes up some of them with the additional hats on the grip, like the thumb head here on the premium version of the Gladiator. I'll do a more comprehensive comparison in my mid-range flight stick roundup I'm going to upload within the next few weeks. On the Solar One you can't have a thumb button or hat, since that's where the swappable thumb rest sits. So Thrustmaster's choice to put a bunch of buttons on the base is more than understandable. The trigger feels nice and responsive, with a clicky first stage and a tactile second. It's exactly the same as the Gladiator. I also like the super responsive 2-way rapid fire trigger in front of it. The hats are surprisingly good, not on the level of the Gladiator's tach switch clusters, but still very good, and better than the rest of the competition at the given price point. The buttons are okay, simple tactile switches. Same goes for the scroll wheel and the pinky button, which has almost no travel range. The momentary switches on the base are a bit scratchy, but still okay. They feel like the ones on the Turtle Beach flight deck, just without the wobbling. The buttons are a bit mushy, but okay overall. The pushable rotary is quite good though, and the same goes for the super snappy 4-way switch on the other side. A disappointment is the throttle slider though. It only has 4 centimeters of throw, and Thrustmaster saved production costs by not including an integrated dust cover, unlike the cheaper Winwing Ursa Minor, which has 5 centimeters of throw and a dust cover on top of that. If you enjoyed checking out the Solar One with me so far, feel free to drop a like, It really helps and means a lot. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the gimbal, the most important part of any stick. Let me be blunt, it's bad. Cup and ball gimbals use just one central spring, which means the return force is the strongest around the center and tension adjustment is hard to impossible to integrate. That's absolutely not what you want, since most inputs you make during flight are slight adjustments around the center. As you can see here, a pincer gimbal, like the Gladiator uses, works much smoother for controlled inputs around the center position. The difference is a lot more pronounced than the recordings show. I have to exert considerably more force to keep the Solar One from centering compared to the Gladiator. The next drawback cup and ball gimbals have is the lack of customization. You cannot easily swap the spring to adjust the tension to your liking, and you're missing clutches. Clutches enable you to use the stick without springs. That's for flying helicopters, for example. And they let you smooth out the stick's motions. That's always useful. The footage you're just watching is the Solar One without clutches compared to the VKB Gladiator with its clutches slightly engaged. If you want to know more about clutches, check out my video on gimbals here on the channel, it covers them too. A big advantage of cup and ball gimbals, on the other hand, is the possibility to keep a low profile, which makes sticks like the T16000M and Velocity 1 better suited for desktop use than most pincer or cam and spring-based systems like the Winwing Orion 2 F16EX. But here's the bad news. Thrustmaster opted for interchangeable grips. That sounds good at first, but the added mounting mechanism now elevates each grip beyond the level of the Gladiator, even with it having the taller palm rest attached. The basic idea of swappable grips is nice, but it negates one of the few advantages the platform could have had. I personally can't understand why they went with this. If I'd shell out 180 euros for the Thrustmaster Hornet grip, for example, which is a lot heavier than the Solar grip, I'd put it on their Ava base, which is much better suited for it. Although it does feel pretty nice on the Solar and doesn't tip over, contrary to my first assumption. Some argue that having fewer moving parts is an advantage of the cup and ball construction. In theory, it is. But claiming it's better for that reason is like praising a bobby car for outclassing a modern car's steering in terms of simplicity. A pincer gimbal, for example, isn't rocket science. It just adds a few well-placed parts that modern engineering handles without breaking a sweat. Flying stuff, doesn't matter if it's in space or atmospheric, is okay with the Solar One. Its movement isn't linear, that's inherent to the gimbal's design. The further you get from the stiff center, the softer the resistance gets. It's less pronounced than with the T16000, but still noticeable. For true linear motion, you need cams that counteract the spring's tension curve or a motorized force feedback gimbal. As with most gimbals of this type, you can still do everything, even air-to-air refueling and other sensitive stuff. But it's like a shit guitar. Sure, you can play complex stuff on it, but it just isn't a lot of fun compared to even slightly better instruments. Especially at the given price point of the flight stick. 179 euro at the time of the review is the same as the Gladiator Standard. It misses the analog mini stick and some buttons, but dominates in almost every other aspect. For 40 bucks more, you can get the Gladiator Premium, which wipes the floor with the Solar One, especially when it comes to the gimbal, which also applies to the Standard. And the missing buttons on the base, for example, are mostly found on the grip itself in the form of additional hats. And then, for 60 bucks more, you get the Virpil Aeromax, which straight out flattens the Solar in all aspects. Build quality, gimbal, service, everything. It doesn't glow as brightly maybe, but that's it. The Aeromax comes with a low-profile metal cam and spring gimbal, which should put it several leagues above the Solar One and probably a solid one above the Gladiator as well. I still have to review it though, so take my assessment with a grain of salt for now. But I'm pretty sure already that it will perform very, very well. That's, by the way, what I had thought Thrustmaster would be doing. First, catch up to the pack with the Ava base like they did, and then replace the T16000M with a pincer-based design or a shrunk Ava gimbal for desktop use. Well, until there's a review of the Aeromax here on my channel, check out the one that Captain Collins just uploaded. Link is in the description. Here's an in-depth comparison between the Solar One and other mid-range flight sticks like the Winwing Ursa Minor and the VKB Gladiator Premium. Check it out to see which one fits your budget and needs best. Fly safe and see you there.